Meteor Impact.
Thank you. So, welcome to the presentation, or better, the workshop on client bundle optimization for your Blaze applications. My name is Küster. I'm a Meteor ambassador and developer with MeteorJS since 2016, and I've worked on multiple apps in Meteor Blaze from different sizes. And when it comes to delivering your Blaze applications to the customers, then there is one very crucial part, and that is it has to load quick. And there is always one problem, and that's considered with single-page applications, which is what we mostly develop with Meteor in general, and that is they are considered too big and take ages to load. And that's because in the traditional sense of a single page application, we have everything bundled together and delivered to the client to just run. That's okay for small applications, but that becomes a problem when your application grows, and scaling not only becomes an issue of what server resources we have for handling user requests, but also when scaling becomes an issue of how do we structure our client-side code. And as you've seen in the survey before, Blaze is still very popular in Meteor, and I think Blaze was also one of the cool things back then when we started with Meteor that made it so easy to enter. And I think nowadays Blaze still has much to offer in terms of optimizations for your client bundle. And before we go into hands-on, let me first do one more little introduction on the client bundle so that everybody is on track here. First of all, wait, what was that? There it is. So what's actually the client bundle? So when your Meteor application, or even if you build with another tool a single page application, bundling is the step where all your source files, your JS files, your HTML based templates, or whatever you use, gets glued together in a single HTML page loading a single JS file and a single CSS file. That's at least the optimum idea of it. And then it's loaded once. At the same time, there might be other processes involved, like code minification, tree shaking. That's what we all want, which means that there is code eliminated that we don't need in the bundle because we don't use it, and code we don't use can be excluded, right? And but for us, there are even more things that could cause a huge client bundle. And I prepared a project where we now look at it, and that's based on the very famous Meteor simple to-dos written in Blaze. And let's first take a look at it, what the bundle visualizer says. So when you have your client bundle delivered to the browser, then it has a certain impact on the load speed, because this initial file might be of a certain size, and usually you cannot start the app once the entire file is delivered to the client, parsed, and executed. So that requires the entire file to be complete. And in Meteor, there is a tool called Bundle Visualizer, and in every created Meteor project, you can just run meteor npm run visualize. It will bundle your project in production mode, means minification and so on. And then you can run, then it runs on top of that a visualization that shows you exactly what packages from Node, but also what from npm, but also in terms of the Meteor packages actually affect the size of the client bundle. So how many megabytes, or hopefully just kilobytes, are loaded, have to be loaded for your application to start. And of course, the bigger the size is, the longer it takes to load. And the example application I gave you has in its current state 2.46 megabytes. That's okay on my desktop and my home internet connection, but that gets easily worse when I'm on the run with my mobile, and even worse when I'm in some areas with bad connection, or some areas where the network availability is generally very low. And if you're acting on a global scale, then you have to consider that there are many countries out there that still have a bad mobile internet connectivity in certain areas, such as Germany. And yeah, so this is a crucial part. Plus, another factor is that your lighthouse score, which you can also test if you run your app with Meteor minus production and then run lighthouse in Chrome or Chromium, it affects your website performance. And if you're thinking about SEO, then you also have to think about that it's not 100% clear if these metrics are used for SEO scoring, but I would assume that improving these scores is a must if a good ranking is also important to use. So make sure your application is not only SEO capable, but also performant enough to be considered for SEO. Okay, enough talk. Today we want to do a hands-on, so let's open the let's open the application and let's go through the existing application. So this is the repository I provided you to download, to clone, and it's the improved version of the classic Meteor Simple To Do's app. Everybody knows the Simple To Do's app. If you don't know the Simple To Do's app, that's okay. If you're new, if you're a veteran and you don't know the Simple To Do's app, then I have some serious questions. But apart from that, let me just open it. You will see it looks a little bit different from the classic To Do app. Share my entire screen because otherwise this is not so good. So I hope everybody can see the To Do's app. I think so. So this is a updated version using a Bootstrap theme, and you know, older applications still use Bootstrap, rely on Bootstrap. And for this example, I wanted to include it so it's a little bit more realistic for these scenarios with some older applications. And apart from that, it's the same. It's the same functionality. You type in a task, and then you have some nice tasks in your task list, which you can check or uncheck. And of course, I wanted to bloat the client bundle by purpose, so we have something to work on. And so this client bundle not only has a Bootstrap theme, but it also has a sorting npm package called sortable.js. It's not a huge package, but it still adds weight to the client bundle when it's added immediately. So this is added here as well. And I also added a icon library. And this icon library is called frontends, which is also often used in some older applications, also in some newer applications. But the fact that frontends provides you a npm import that allows you to import the entire library is bloating your package by 1.5 megabytes. So yeah, that's the To-Do's app as you can see it here right now, using the icons. Oh, and there's one more thing. This uses an I18N translation. I will go to the code in a second. So everything you can see here is translated using an I18N translation file. And if you know from your applications that are a little bit bigger, then these INTN files can become 1 MB by itself already if you put every translation in this one file. And we want to tackle these things. So let me show you the code in a second. Um, the the setup of the structure of the directory is actually the same as you have your client folder and your main.js entry point. This is where all the client code gets imported. And additionally to that, we not only import the components, but also the bootstrap and the font awesome here. So these are basically, we import everything. It's all bundled just together. There's no optimization right now. Everything is included. And from the main HTML file, this is the most minimal. We will keep it as that. There will be no optimizations in this file, but mostly will happen in these files. And then we have this import folder, and then this is the same as with the original simple to-dos. We have this server-side file where tasks are created, where Meteor methods are used to create tasks with tasks.insert async. We can remove tasks with remove async. So this is really the same, just updated a little bit. But I added one more thing here because this might be of interest to you as well. And that is, I created an SHA-512 file to create SHA-512 hashes, because Meteor itself provides some SHA tools, but only for 256. And I wanted to provide you some use case to see how we can optimize that, because this SHA-512 is used in the client and the server, and it uses the node crypto package to create hashes. Let's say, as a hypothetical use case, someone created a task and we want to see if the task was changed. Then we have this hash integrity by the initial text and the created timestamp or whatever. And then if somebody would change that, the hash would not fit anymore because of the initial hash is not the same as the hash we can recreate. And then we could say, oh, somebody changed that. But that's not the purpose here. It's just to show you that we include a node library that will be used on the client. And Meteor has some functionality to handle these includes, and that's called node stubs. This is why you always have in your package.json this so-called Meteor node stubs. That's a package that basically looks, oh, is there a node.js package from the node.js core included in code that is intended to run in the client? And then this looks for a stub version to make it run on the client without the hard dependency to Node, because that would not work. You cannot execute the Node code on the client. So, but this is bloating your package, of course. This is bloating your client bundle too. And this is how I want to show you how we get rid of this as well. So we have this tasks file, and apart from that, it's really the same, just updated to async. Then we have some auxiliary components, for example, a simple component to render an icon. This is really just a wrapper for font awesome icons, which have their own element with some defined class names here. This is just so that I can say, that's the name, render me an icon. So when you look here, I say icon name is trash, and then it's rendering this one. Works quite nice. Okay, then we have a loading component, and the loading component is just exactly doing that. It's using the spinner icon with a pulse animation. That's basically inside the font awesome handling that for us. And then there is a translated loading term. And And from there, we can get to the next one, because that's it, translation. So there is this i18n helper, and that's part of the i18n file, which is also included here in the import. Okay, so what's doing, it's using the Ostrio i18n package. I like it because it's very lightweight and offers most options I need for multilingual user interfaces. And yeah, it's loading that. I have one initial locale right now that's English, but just imagine you have 10 locales you want to support, and now you have 10 i18n files, each of them containing thousands of entries. Or let's say they have 500 entries. It's still adding a lot to your client bundle. And then I'm just registering here in helper so that we have this translated label here. And the file for this is here. It's in the i18n folder as well. And this is the file right now. So this file contains all the labels that are to be translated in the entire application. There's this common loading. Then there are some of these lists. And list is basically everything around this interface here. To-do list, hide completed task, type to add a new task. Let me increase that a bit. And then there's another one that's task. And these are all the labels inside these task entries here. So this is all translated, and this is all loaded in the beginning, all at once. Okay, let's get into two more templates, and then we start working on optimizing this. So there's the body template, and the body template is basically just doing the wrapper for subscribing and passing the correct task document after subscription down to the list of tasks. And this list of tasks, that is this one, each task is a list item. So that is this one. This list item here, it's basically one entry here. And that's it just for the beginning. Oh, and there is one thing, of course, here would be the validity test. So let me open this task.js file, which is also hard included. There is the SHA 512 test. So this is just comparing the hashes. Again, this is not a really real world use case, but that's how it is. So okay, this is just to show you how the current structure is working, but now we want to reduce our client bundle by specific methods. And this is what this workshop is for. It's for you to understand what methods are there that you can apply on your own projects later on. And for that, let me just switch to the presentation quickly. And today, because of the time constraints, there will be three methods I want to show you. And this is, first of all, we will use exact code splitting to prevent Meteor from stubbing your code. You know, we don't want to we don't want Meteor in this SHA 512. We don't want it to stop this crypto package on the client. We want to have an alternative version on the client, but we want to retain the isomorphic style. We don't want to change a lot of the code here. We just want to make sure that this version of crypto is just used on the server, not on the client. On the client, we want to provide something else without changing the major signature of this function. And then what we want to is, we don't want to load everything together. So if you have the load chain here, you have main.js, that's the entry point, loading body.js, loading task.js, loading everything. This is like a chain of imports. We want to break that chain of imports progressively only when the template is needed. It also involves some Meteor packages I will show you then, but it's easier than you might think. And then the last one is dynamically loading assets so that it's also lazy loading the assets to get rid of these full bloated font awesome package in our case. So let me switch back to the code. Let me close all tabs, and then we get to the very first step. So let me close everything so that we can start clean here and nobody is confused where we are. So the very first thing is we want to have the crypto package not being added to the client. So let me open again import API SHA512. There is the crypto package. We don't want that in the client. So how can we write code now that it's split by server and client without leaking the import into the client? I could write now some code like if meteor.is server, and then I could do some code like export const, but this leads to trouble. I can tell you. And because we don't want to, if you want to prevent the import from being picked up, it's best to wrap it in a function and only execute that function when meteor.js server applies. And for you, this is a function we are writing now that makes your life easier altogether. You can, if you write this function once, you can use it in all your Meteor projects from now on, because this is very generic. And I call this function isomorphic. And export const isomorphic. It's just a function. And this function takes as parameter an object with server and client. And we expect server and client being functions. And these functions are executed then based if we are a Meteor server or client. So let's keep that for free now, because I don't want to be too abstract. I want to show you how it would look like first. Let's say we remove that here. And then we say this is isomorphic. And then we have a definition here called server, and then client. Then we move that import here and then there. So what we're doing here is, let's say if we're on the server, we want to import crypto, but not outside of server environment, only inside here. And then we return the function that actually gets assigned to SHA12. And here we want to do the client code. That comes in a second. So how would we write this isomorphic function? Well, that's not really hard, because here now we can just say if meteor.js server. Yeah, that's okay. We can fix that later. If meteor.js server, we return the execution of the server function. If meteor.js client, we return the execution of the client function. And of course, we could throw a new error or something like unknown environment. I would say there is an unknown environment because a Meteor is very predictable. Either you're on a server or on the client. I cannot imagine that there is a state where those do not apply. But anyway, it's a good practice to throw an error here, because that's really unexpected. And now we have already partially our server method for the SHA12 implemented. Now we do the client part. The client part is a little bit more complicated, because you need to understand how crypto is handled on the web. First of all, let me make this explicit so that everybody knows this is a node crypto package. You can also omit it, but that's okay. It's better to have it. On the client, it's a little bit different. It's async, and it's still getting an input, but now we need something else. We need a encoder first. That's a standard. You can read it up on MDN, for example. We use an encoder, and we encode, let's say, this coder uses some of our input string and encodes this into some kind of an uint8 array or something like this. And then we can hash buffer, and it's already, oh, the suggestions are actually pretty cool, but it's not correct. So we use crypto subtle digest, and this is not 100% right. Let me add window here. So what is this window crypto subtle? This is part of the web crypto API. And this web crypto API is actually a web standard in most modern browsers. So you can be, let's say, 95% sure that your customers or your target audience will be able to use whatever a crypto subtle is offering nowadays. So then we create a buffer, and that's basically a new uint8 array from the hash buffer. Then we create a string from char code. Whoops, sorry. I know this is a little bit, let's say, I mean, this is not the target of the workshop, but this is a little bit of having some fun with the coding here. So, and then once we have the string, we make this a hex string, finally. So first of all, everybody can follow me. So it's not array from buffer, but from string, and it's mapping C to string 16 paths should work out. We can check that later on. So first of all, yeah, that's throwing up some error because isomorphic is not a function. So let's check on that. Why is isomorphic not a function? Are we missing something in the isomorphic? It is a function. How can isomorphic be not a function here? Let me check a second. Oh, it's reloading. So let's start our app again, and now it's breaking everything. That's not cool. So let me just fix up the function here, because that's not how I wanted to have. That's string buffer, and then we have an array from string. The char code at 0 to string 16 0. So let's see if that's working now. Still all wrong. This can't be. Let me take a look where it is. So it's somehow the hashes don't work. They don't match anymore, and I want this to work. I mean, we still have some time here, so because the next big step is coming up afterwards. Okay, if somebody found a workaround on this, let me know. To string pad start to 0 join. This is weird, but let me keep it at that for now, and then okay, let me keep it at that for now, and we can later work this out. Important is I have another branch on this where it is definitely working, so there might be some small issue here. The important thing is that if we run the bundle visualizer, you will see that this is now gone. So what we can do is we can run the bundle visualizer actually. Meteor, we just cancel the current execution and run meteor npm run visualize, and then it's currently bundling up the as production with the extra package bundle visualizer. And then if we reload the app on localhost 3000, then we will see the visualization of the included code here. And then there should be no crypto package being stubbed. So it's even 3.1 MB, but that's because the initial package size was even bigger. On my slide, it was wrong because I forgot to add something. So let's see. Oh no, there is Meteor node stubs. So it's still, there is something still here. The Meteor node stubs, and this is, yep, this is part of the crypto packages, all these SHA and so on, public encrypt, Diffie Hellman, these are all parts of the crypto. So it's definitely still there. And so I have to go one more round in the dev to see that this is working properly, right? So this is the isomorphic function. This is tasks. This is SHA2. Am I missing something here? Anybody can find something. I can do this. Acquire crypto. Then we can have that so that crypto is only called on the server, definitely. So oh, there is something more I wanted to we have to change, of course, and that is because we broke isomorphism here right now, because the server function is sync while the client function is async, and that's of course something we didn't want to do. So there has to be a little refactoring, of course, and that is, and now I know why it's not working on the client, and that is we have to make it async. So we have to look where it's used, and I can just show here. Okay, find usages. It's used in the tasks file. Somewhere search for it. And here in the tasks file, we have to await now the SHA, but that's okay because in Meteor methods, everything is async by default. And now I get it what I forgot. And that is, I have to also open the UI folder, and there is tasks.js. And there now, it's of course not sync anymore, it's async. So it's comparing a hash to a promise, and this of course fails. And this is why we have the X here, because this is rendering an X if the hash fails. And if I'm doing this and just doing that, and now people would think, wow, since when can we run helpers in async mode? And actually you can do that thanks to Radoslav, who was working on the async compatibility in Blaze. So when I'm running this, now the X's are gone because the hashes are working. Yay. So wrapping this up and showing this in my slide just for quick thing. Very important, we use exact code splitting. That's one of the the dreaded async. We use exact code splitting to skip imports when they appear within a function. And this function is only executed when Meteor is server or Meteor is client. This is why you write the isomorphic function. You write this once and then you declare things always using isomorphic, passing a definition for server and for client, and you're fine. And now let's get back to the code and let's run the bundle visualizer and let's see if that's gone. And it was a good thing that it was there. So it showed us, oh yes, this is why the bundle visualizer is such an important tool. It shows us, it helps us to verify what we've done in a way that we definitely can see by hard numbers. Did my optimization actually help me? Did my optimization reduce the bundle size or not? So let's look. So we're still there. Why? Oh my God, why it's still there? That can't be. This can't be. This can't be. I hope not. I hope it's not some caching thing. Let me run it here. It's still there. Oh my God. Now I'm feeling a little bit embarrassed, but why did it work out like that? Why it's still wrapping that code in there? Okay. This is interesting. I will get back to this in a minute. Until that, let me uh, let me look. Let me restart the app and let me run the app again. And until we find out, we can optimize that later. I mean, you know the technique right now. This is important that you know the technique. Yeah, take the working branch. I could take the working branch. So from there, the require should be inside the return function. Oh yeah, we can do that. That could be a thing. We can try that. Of course, that would be an interesting approach. Let's see first if that works out. So I'm reloading. Okay, seems to not throw any error. Then let's run the visualizer and see how it's done. Just for a second. It takes always a while, but with the newer Meteor versions, we have a new bundler, and then it's much faster. Although I don't know if then these optimization techniques have to be revisited again, if they still work like that. Let's see that in a minute. It's still there. I can't believe it. Maybe it's leaking somewhere. I will take a look at this later. Because the idea is not, it's not the intent. The idea is that the bundler is picking that up using instead of require. Yeah, you could use a dynamic import, but I don't know if that still makes the package or the module being considered during the bundle process. Okay, let's try that. That's okay. Let's try that. Let's try that. So const crypto is await import node crypto. Okay. And then return crypto dot create hash. Okay, let's try that. At least, I mean, that's the advantage of having this as a workshop, so we can work together on this and finally make this running. So first of all, let's see. Reload. Yes, nice. Take a look at that. So we are down to 248 megabytes. So thank you, Jan. Dimitri, sorry. Thank you, Jan. Jan and Dimitri. And then we're at 248. So thanks a lot, you guys. So this is the first part. Okay, now I'm a little bit under I'm a little bit under pressure of the wasted time, but that's okay. So now there's another thing what we want to do, and that is we don't want to load everything by default. And there is a method, and you know it, you already named it, that's called dynamic import. And there's a caveat in dynamic import, and that is, let's say I want to dynamically load the content here, and only once the sub is ready or something like this, because I don't need, let's say, okay, sorry, don't confuse you. Let me rerun the app again and show you. So let's say I want to display partial templates only when a certain state is ready. Then, of course, I could dynamically import this here. But this is getting out of hand easily, having always these dynamic imports everywhere, and then somewhere in some stage of your code, define, at this point, I want to dynamically import, let's say I'm moving this here. Import, I can show you something like this. Let's say import, just dynamically import. That would cause the app, first of all, it would work. That's okay. Let's see. Oh no, it would not, because, and that's the problem, this so-called task template, which we are importing here right now, is now not here anymore. So what would I have to do? I would have to look for some, I would have to create another state, look until it's loaded, then make it ready, and then having more ifs and else, and that's getting out of hand easily. So I had this issue quite a few years before, and if you're using Flow Router, for example, and Dr. Dimitri is already commenting on that, you can also use Flow Router to organize your imports. That's okay. And there is another thing I want to show you today, and that is where you don't have to organize these things anywhere, and that is by using another package that I created, and that is Küster template loader. It's a minimal package. You don't have to do lots of coding. And what it does is it not only dynamically imports the the templates, but it also allows you to define templates like this one here, but you don't need to wait until it's loaded. And let me show you by this. Let me remove this dependency, this task.js. When I'm reloading now, it will tell me task.js is not there, no such template. And instead, I'm creating a new startup file called, let's say, templates. And in this, I'm importing now the template loader from meteor.js/ template loader. And here I'm saying template loader enable. That's a function where I'm a little bit of monkey patching things, but that's okay. And then dot register. And now it's called, that's the name, that's the only thing, it's called task. And here I'm doing a method that resolves to a dynamic import called UI/task. And when I'm now on the main.js, adding this into my load order startup templates. Now I'm dynamically loading the template. Wait. And now it's there. And that's the thing is, it's hooking into some of the lookup functions in the Blaze view lookup cycle. And when this is still a promise, then it just waits until it's resolved, and then it's replacing the promise with the actual template. And you can do that with many of these things. Let's say we get rid of this icon and we get rid of this loading. Just add them here as well. Say icon, components, icon. Oh no, it's in the folder icon. Oh, And then we do it with the loading as well. Loading, that's not. These suggestions are not always helpful. Okay, and then the name of the template is, of course, loading. Okay, we have these. Let's reload. And now these are all there. And then they're just loaded in time when they are referred to in your template code. This has, of course, one disadvantage. You need to know which you refer and have them definitely in your template loader logic being added. But depending on what you want to achieve, for example, let's say you have some global components like icon, loader, something like this, then these are very good candidates for the template loader. And if you have pages, I would definitely organize them on the router level, like Dr. Dimitri commented, so that you can say, okay, I have my pages on a router level, but they make use of some global components like icon that's shared everywhere, or some alert, notification, whatever. And these can be added there. Then there's a question, what happens with very big templates? Does it show a loading state? I'm quite sure it currently does not show a loading state. So this is definitely something that could be improved, something like having a replace template or something, or a Blaze view that is displayed or rendered until it's loaded. That would be definitely a improvement. Apart from that, I currently have no solution for that in this package. Let me improve that even more. Let's say we don't use Buddy because Buddy isn't Blaze a registered first-class citizen. I cannot dynamically load that right now that easily, but I can try. But what I would do is I reorganize the code from Buddy into something like to do, and let me do that. And in the UI, let me create a new folder, and it's called to do. And in to do, I'm creating a new to do HTML. That's the template name to do. And then, of course, a JS file to do. And now I'm copying the content of Buddy, or like the inside content of Buddy, into to do, and just render it in to do, because Buddy is attached immediately, and then it can dynamically load to do. And the same we do for this JS code here. Just need to change that to import.buddy. And in the to do, we rename this to do. Tasks needs to be one level up because we are now in a subfolder. We can rename template buddy to template.to do. Should be all the same down to the very last. And in the templates file, let's add this to the to-do folder in the to-do file. Okay, let's reload and see if there's no error happening. Yes, loading still. So now it's loading everything dynamically. And I'm not sure how much we saved, but because we have in the tasks file, we also have the in the to-do, we also have this sortable JS in there, and sortable JS takes up also quite a few. Let's rerun the bundle visualizer for now to see how this is working. And let me check in the meantime the code on the next things to improve. Okay, this is it. Yes. So let's reload and see how much did we a reduction we're still at but 2.43. I think a few kilobytes have been reduced. So we still have this font awesome and bootstrap and jQuery. We can remove jQuery because it's part of Blaze. ProperJS, part of Bootstrap. Node stubs is now nearly empty. We could even remove it. We have Blaze, minimal, no. But there is no sortable JS anymore. So node modules is nearly clean, at least from what we want. So we removed a little bit more, and this technique helps you definitely to get rid of initial code, for example, also when it depends on npm modules. And when I'm looking at the poll, there are definitely some people having some. Let me publish the poll here. So definitely, besides your mom, as somebody stated, is one of the issues is npm packages, and getting rid of npm packages can help you a lot to reduce the bundle size. And with that, let's go to the next thing. That's the i18n file. So now i18n file, this is one file and that's loaded once. Let me close the other files. Let's go back to our main.js because that's the main entry point here. And there is this one import i18n.js, and this file is loading all the code immediately. But what we want to have is when we already load templates dynamically when needed, then it makes sense to also just load the translations that relate to these templates when needed, and they are needed when the templates are loaded. So what can we do about that? It's not so hard actually to implement. It's more of a chore work, and it requires some time if you have a big application, but it will definitely benefit you. You can create in your templates, in the folder, you create a new folder called i18n. And then for the language, let's say en.json. And in this file now, we're placing that part that belongs to the list, to the template, sorry. For example, in our to-do, that's the list. I'm cutting that out and adding that here. That's now only the translation that's required for the to-do, and we want to dynamically import that here and add it to our i18n. Yeah, we do that later. Let me first create the correct structure. And then in the next one, I'm creating a new folder for tasks. So let's do a little bit refactoring here. Create a new folder and move this task template, task.html and task.js into that folder. Let our IDE refactor that for us so that it's quite there. Now we create another subfolder called i18n, and there we place also an en.json file. And this file now receives the, sorry, it's the wrong, that's one, the task translations. So now we've split up. We have a translation only for the to-do list component, and we have a translation only for the task component. And then we have still some default translations. These are the ones we definitely want to have immediately available once the application runs, for example, to display loading. That makes sense, right? So when I'm running the application now, let's close all again and see what happens. When I'm running the application, you will see that it's taking a minute. So then you will see that nothing is translated anymore. Now it's again list title, list height completed, type to add. Everything is now the i18n codes that were defined in these components. So what can we do about it? Let's open, first of all, the to-do file. And in this to-do file, I want to load here, I want to load the i18n code. And I want to have I don't want to mess again with all the code in every file and make this always the same way, writing lots of boilerplate code again. So what I want to have is I want to have a async. I want to have an easy way to define, let's say, an object like where the language code is pointing to an import. So don't code with me right now. Just take a look at what I'm doing here in a minute. I want to have a function, something like load i18n, where I'm passing an object with functions pointing to a dynamic import. That's very important that it's pointing to the dynamic import and not executing the dynamic import. And that's pointing to the relative located JSON file for this locale. So in optimal, I would have like en, fr, and then de, and so on. You have all your languages there pointing to these imports and then being awaited. Okay, that's cool. But even cooler would be to have some kind of a wrapper where I can say this dot i18n loaded is some async loader or something that returns that wraps this async loading function into something that returns me a reactive variable. Because remember, in Blaze we are using reactive variables to make our life easier, and then I can use this in some helpers like i18 loaded return template instance dot i18n loaded dot get, and then execute some logic there, for example. So until that, I can display some loading icon. Let's do that. Let's write this async loader and this load i18n file. Let's go backwards. It's really easy, and most of that stuff can be reused again. So this is hopefully something you definitely get out of this workshop, is that you end up with some code that you can reuse. So let's create some folder like utils, call it async loader. And this async loader is really easy. It's taking a promise, because that's what async functions return. And then it's having a reactive file. Oh, it's suggesting everything to me already. That's so boring, this whole AI-based code completion. So, but it's nearly correct. So you have a reactive variable, and then which initiates with false, and you return it. And in the meantime, what you do here is you run. Let's remove that. That's not good. Promise.resolve our promise. Yes, Jan, I agree. The AI completions get sometimes very in a way. Let's resolve the promise, and let's say when it's catching, we can pipe that to console error. You can do whatever you want with that. That's up to you. Important is that under finally we have a function. Let's make this a little bit more concise. We have a function that sets the reactive variable to true. That's the async loader taking a promise and just switching some reactive variable state based on the promise state. That's helping us a lot, because then we can wrap things into this. So that's the first part. And now we implement our load i18n file. And this is not so hard either. I just have to again take a look on that I'm not doing something wrong here. So for the load i18n file, I just create this here, load i18n. And this is an export. It's not taking a promise, but this is taking this options object. And what I'm doing now is I'm leveraging the current functionality of the Austria i18n. So I have to import that first. Import import i18n from that's this file here, because this is exporting already the i18n instance. That's helping us a lot. So we want to have our locale, and that's something we can get by current locale.get. Sorry. So, and we have to check that this locale is in the options. If type of options, the locale is not a function, and that would mean, let's say, our current locale is not English, something else, but we only have this here, then it would throw an error. And of course, this could be improved. This is just one way to handle that. Of course, for a better user experience, you would implement a default or a question like, would you change your locale? We provide only in English and so on, but that's way beyond the scope of this, what we're doing here. So we throw an error. Throw a new error. For this, the AI suggestions are actually quite okay. Okay, but now we want to load the translations, and this is how we do it. We await options locale and execute that. And I forgot async. So, and then we use another function of the i18n, and that's called add localization, or add L10n, which is the short for that. And then we can say translation default translation. That depends on, sometimes this is for me, of course, the more concise way would be to find out which is actually, is it a module that's loaded with the default, or is it the normal one. I think if you say module export or export default, then it would contain default, otherwise it contains that. So I think it will handle both with that. Okay, so we have this loader, and now we want to include the loader, of course, here as well. So that's this one. And now we have the i18n loaded. So our i18n loaded, it's a reactive variable because we've wrapped the promise from our loader pointing to our translation file. Let's reload, and ta-da, it's still somehow sometimes not translated, and sometimes it's translated. How is that happening? It's because the template rendered before the translation was loaded. So this one rendered immediately is not translated. This here, this placeholder, that's this one here, type to add new task. This is translated because it was later interpreted, because this part changed when the Meteor user was, the connection was established and the user was logged in with the signing again. So this reran, and then it was there. So we have to wrap things like these right now. If i18n loaded, we are wrapping this up. And then we could do else with our loading template, which is also automatically loaded right now due to the template loader package. And let's see what happens if I'm rerunning this, and now there's to-do list. Yeah, we can do that with the other template. Where is another i18n here? There it is. There it is. Let's move it. Remove this. So, and then we have everything here. That's cool. And now we can do that the same in the task page. And now there is a little caveat, which I want to cover as well. So in the task template, we could do the same here, right? Not really. Why? Because the task template is called many times, many times. This is not like the list or the page template, which is just used once and just randomly or rarely called. So this template here is instantiated many times each time this element. So we don't want to have something like inside this template. to be loaded. So we want to load the language here once. So let's say constant itn loaded. So this is why we declare it outside of the template. Equals, and then again we use the async loader. We say load itn, and then en pointing to the import of the itn JSON file, and then we can do something like this. And the nice thing is we can use inside the templates things from outside. In React, your whole code would explode now if you use inside the component something that's defined outside. But here we can use that. And in the task template now, I'm making life a little bit easier for me now. I'm just putting inside the list if itn loaded, and then we put all the stuff in there. So until itn is loaded, we show a loader icon. Let's say slash if, so slash loading. Let's reformat that code. Oh, sorry. What did I do? I did something. Yeah, here's the hash. So that's now reformed. Let's reload. And now, oh, they're not translated. What's going on? They're not translated. Let me take a check. Task make private. I'm getting closer, but not. Oh, yeah, that's because it's loading wrong path. Yeah. Yes, now they are loaded, as you can see. And just for you to see, to show you how it would look like. So if I just put that off here, then it would look like this. But that's okay, I think. So that's showing, and sometimes it might take a little bit longer, but usually that loads pretty fast. Okay, so we have that. Let's go back to our bundle visualizer and see if we have some optimizations. I doubt it, because the translation files in our example are not that big. But consider you have locales for, I don't know, many languages, and you have a big application with lots of localization in and distributed across many templates. This could save up to a megabyte or something. Let's see again. Let's see again what we can do about it here. So we're at 2.43, so not much changed. I think it's in a kilobyte range. Okay, let's tackle the the big one here. That's the font awesome. So I struggled with this a lot, because I always had to decide, am I lazy and want to have quick results? So I just use the library, have all the fonts in there, and then I have a huge bundle. Or do I have to manually pick the icons I need and include them as SVG? It's really annoying, especially if you're in the early development phase where you still have to exchange icons and you still don't know 100%. You don't want to copy that code. It's really annoying. So there is one way we can do, and then that's making it's getting a little bit more complicated now in the beginning, but in the long term this is really comfortable, especially if you want to keep your library, or if you're relying on a library like I do with Font Awesome, because it has a certain set of icons that I want to use and I don't want to mix up these libraries. And it works also with other SVG icons. So we change our icon class to become a SVG icon loader, basically. And we first create a directory called public. And in this public directory, I'm creating a new directory. It's called icons. So the last 15 minutes, we should get going by this. Get a Font Awesome. So what I'm doing is on the Font Awesome repository. So there is this Font Awesome repository, right? The nice thing is it contains all the SVGs. And for now, what I'm doing is here's the regular, and you can see every icon here is as an SVG. So what you could do is you can take the repository, download it as zip, and then unpack it. Let me do that in the background quickly. So you unpack it, and where am I extracting it? I know you can't see it right now, but that's because I don't want to fiddle around with these things here. And then just want to open the folder here, SVGs. The SVGs, okay. So I have the SVGs from the Font Awesome folder. I'm just about to copy them into this icon folder. I know this is now some kind of a manual labor, but you just have to do it initially. You have to do it once. And this is much easier than to manually copying every icon for ages. Plus, when the icons are placed inside the SVG icons are placed inside that icons folder, which is part of the public folder. They are not added to your bundle because they're just made available on a public route of your application being fetched. So now we have all the icons here, SVGs in our public folder. And now I'm going to open, first of all, I'm going to remove from the main file, I'm going to remove this one. That's the super huge icon set that's bloating up. And I'm going to the icon component. And now we have to do a few tricks to make this work. So this is going to be our last step in the workshop, but I hope you bear with me the last 15 minutes to get this working, and then let's see how much we can change the icon. Okay, so first of all, we still need to import something like from Font Awesome / Font Awesome free, and that's the CSS SVG with JS CSS. That's a minimal CSS file that contains some, whoops, okay, it's not that minimal. I would love to get rid of it. It's still 500, but it's used if you want to have some of the animations like the spin, the shake, flip, and stuff. If you need that, if you rely on them, or like certain sizing, then you need that file. If you don't rely on that, you could even try to omit that file, would save you even some more. The next thing we need is we need a cache, because we want to load an SVG icon once and not each time. We use a reactive dictionary for that because we want to achieve that by name. Port reactive from meteor / reactive dictionary. So, okay, and what we are doing now is we have basically in our icon, we have two states. We have the still loading or the icon is loaded state, because what we're going to do is we use the fetch to fetch this SVG from the public route, and then we attach this content. I mean, this SVG here, this is just some code with some path inside, and then we just attach the path to an internal one. So what we do is template.icon.onCreated function. And then we say this dot state is new reactive dictionary. So this is for each icon, the loading, handling the internal loading state. This is to check for all icons if for this very specific icon everything is loaded or not, basically. And so we need now a loader function to load the icon using fetch. Okay, const load icon it's an async function because we're using fetch and we want to give it a name. And the name is like the same name we are passing to the icon file here. Let me open that split move, right? So we have this name here, like FA trash is used for the trash icon, and FA times is used for the for the cross, for example. And by this name, we want to look here in the file name, actually, in the route and load it. So if and of course we want to check if it's not in the sorry for that auto completion. If we have a name and type of cache get name is undefined, but undefined as we define undefined, not undefined, so that this is just for better state handling. And there we, if that's the case, then load the SVG, and then at the very end of all that, we want to return a deconstructed version of the SVG, and that is path cache get name, because we don't store the entire SVG, we just want to store the path and the view box. So that's, if you don't know what they are, they're basically parts of the SVG standard, and we attach them to our SVG, which we will change here in a second. Just bear with me, should be fine. So we have two cache keys. We have the name, and then we have the name minus VB for viewbox. That's, oh, sorry. These are what we want to return. And then at this place, we want to load the SVG. First of all, this is some cache.set name empty. This indicates that we have already, we don't need to reload this. Let's say you load this item, this icon 20 times in a second, then we just want to reserve this space for the cache already so that they can be like, okay, first of all, we need the href to fetch from using the fetch request. And this is nice with Meteor. We just say Meteor absolute URL. And then the path is icons, because these auto-completions. Name.svg, that's the path. This is leading to what's exactly here, because this slash is public, so this is the href. And then what we're doing is we await a fetch response. And if the response is not okay, then we throw an error. That's failed to load the icon. And if it's okay, then SVG is await response.text, because we load SVG is just a text file, so we just loading that. And to make sure there is no issue, we say is SVG starts with SVG. We make sure there's really just an SVG. Then we use a DOM parser. Every browser has that in it. That's the nice thing about it. DOM parser. That helps us. Oh, it's written wrong. The DOM parser is helping us to get through the SVG. Then we parse the SVG into a document. Parser parse from string. And then that's basically the SVG with that part. Then we get the SVG element, which is the document element. So this is basically like with every HTML page, we just get that. And now we get to the things we actually want. So the path, that's what we want. And that's our SVG element dot query selector, not all, but just that, and then just path, because there is only one element named path. And then we have the view box. That's not a element, but that's an attribute. And that's how we get it with get attribute. And now we set them into the cache. Cache.set name path, get attribute D. Yeah, now it's for those who are not into SVG, this looks a little bit confusing, but that's how SVG is done. And I just want to shortcut this for you right now, to make it accessible easily. So this is our load icon, and now we need to load the icon actually. And how can we do that? We need to manipulate the item in the onRendered function. The icon in this, sorry, give me a second. So here's some noise. So we need to manipulate the icon in the onRendered function. And for that, we recreate this. Instead of an icon, we really write an SVG. We really write SVG XML and as equals, and then what's the default is it's the W3 from 2000 /SVG standard namespace. The view box is what we return from the view box, and the view box is there to make sure your SVG icons are actually displayed in the correct scaling. So then we have inside that we have a path with the D, and then we call it path here. So this is what we pass. We need to add some classes, and I will get into that in a second. SVG root icon, and we want to pass some class names from a helper. This is our basic setup for the template, and this is get filled now with what we've loaded here. So we need last 5 minutes, 4 minutes. Oh my God. Template.icon.onRendered. This is where we want to actually make the icon fetch the icon and put it into the state. So we need an auto run file, and I can show you later. This is something I can explain next time. If we get in contact in the future, I can explain you that. But basically, we want to have the template current data. That's what we pass to the template, something like the name. We create some attributes from that data as a copy. And we get the ads.name, because that's the most important part right now. And okay, there is, we were running the load icon with the name. Then have view box, and there we put them into the state, and we catch that on console.error. So this might be incomplete now, because there are some more things we have to add, for example, to the class names. And let's put that first template icon.helpers, because without the helpers, there will be no path and no view box. So path, instead of the path, that looks good, and the view box looks also good. The only thing is what we need now is class names, but we could also say FAR, that's the regular. Is there something what we need? Oh yeah, and we need the current color as a class. That should be it. Actual class is color class. Do we need a color class? Let me check just again, because otherwise we have the problem that the color class might not be, the color might not be correctly applied. Let's see in a minute if that still works. Class names. Okay, let's first reload and see if that works how it is now. Okay, you see that? So that's the problem now. It's making these icons really huge. And that's the last thing we have to do is we have to create a icon.css file. Import CSS file here. And in the CSS file, we have to make sure that the .icon class, that's the one we added here, has some width of 1em, height 1em, 1em. We have vertical align of minus 0.125em. And we have a fill with the current color so that it applies to the text color classes we put it from the outside. And let's see if that's working out. Okay, they're here, but they are not loaded. Oh, damn it. Okay, there's something missing. Okay, now one of the most important parts, I should have put them into the beginning, are now not 100% working. And I have to check out again why. Let me just check a second. Parent SVG icon class names. Oh, there is something missing. Yes, fill equals current color. Let's see if that's the missing part. Hey, no. Okay, they're still not there. Let me check inside the button if the SVG, the path is not there. Okay, there's something missing here. Oh, wait, there is something missing. Good attribute D first to get inner path element, then D on that. Let me check. That might be something here. Just making sure that these are loaded here. Let me check if these are loaded. Okay, the path is undefined. Yes, so very close to what you said. Path and what do I have here? I've got attribute D was the right one. I'm not sure why is that. Let me run the debugger for a minute. I know I'm over the time. I'm really quickly. Oh, it's simply not loading. Look, so let me. Yeah, the helpers are here for path and for view box. They're both definitely there. Okay, there's no error thrown. Undefined VB parsing viewbox attribute. Okay, something is definitely weird here. Okay, let me quickly run and otherwise the full code is definitely in another branch. It's the optimize branch, and let me check. I think name is spinner. Go into the icon. I think there is the issue here. Okay. I found the issue. It's not the type of the cache is not undefined. I don't know why. Name and type of cache that name. Let's see if that's working. Let's go inside. Name. Oh, here, name is undefined. Okay. So this one was undefined here, and I don't know why. Here's the name. Ads.name is globe. And when I go into, then there is name undefined. I don't know why. Why is name here undefined? What is going on? I mean, this is, oh yeah, that's the issue. Look, so let's get rid of the debugger. I was attributing it wrong. It's still not working. Oh, okay, this is not looking. Parsing vbox attribute. There's something definitely unexpected. Okay. Okay, I think I'm going to wrap up. Yeah, that's the demo effect, definitely. I mean, it's not the first time I had the demo effect on my presentations, but it's really when the code gets more complex, then it's pretty. It can pretty quickly get to that. Okay, let me quickly do something. Let me check out git branch optimization complete. That's the name. Let me quickly check out and show you. It's basically the thing with the optimization complete. Sure. So basically, to wrap this up, there are quite a few techniques you can leverage to make your Meteor code, your client bundle, much smaller, and keep your entire application functionality as it is. And when you take a look inside here now, this is the real SVG that is loaded. This is all in the other branch. The thing is, Dr. Dimitri is asking if caching the entire SVG is simpler and then passing it by triple curly braces. Yes, you can do that, but then you have to be very aware that SVG can include executable JavaScript code. So SVG JS execution is actually a real world XSS vulnerability threat. And Jan is coming up here because I already exceeded my time. Guys, thank you so much for attending this and also even helping me with that. And I hope it helped you and will help you in the future to use these techniques. Take a look into the branches in the repository. You can take the code and let's talk about it later in the chat. I'm out for that, so leave the stage for the other.
Okay, thank you very much, Jan. And let me get